Yeah,
What were you seeing that he did? I've heard a lot of the people online talk about it, but I want to know what your take was on what went wrong on that play for him.
I don't think it's, you have to remember one thing. Quarterbacks that can make plays outside of structure always think they can do that. And sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. Obviously, the ones who are really good at it do it more than they don't. What happened was it became a breakdown play. He rolled to his right. I think it was Brown that he saw wide open in the end zone, and he thought he had that throw, and he was throwing across his body, which of course coaches would tell you never to do. But then again, guys who can do it do that on occasion, as we know.
Who do you believe has the traits and the skill sets that would make be the best fit for the defense that he wants to run with the inside backers that the 5 or 6 guys that the Eagles currently have?
They want those safeties never to leave the umbrella two shell coverage. So what that means is the underneath linebackers become absolutely critical in underneath zone coverage. So it's it's wonderful when you see Zach Baun and Nakobe Dean, who I thought both had really good moments on Friday night playing in the run game. Dean obviously is a very good gap shooter. I think he's got a really good feel for that. I thought Baun, given that he's never really played stack backer until he got to the Eagles, really showed some quick key and diagnose and a quick trigger. But the most important element overall is to be able to play underneath zone coverage.
I noticed they had Devonta Smith in the slot about 70% of the snaps, which
Yep.
is great. I think this is kind of a temporary thing until Dotson gets back.
Based on his history, he moves a lot of people around, both formationally and through motion. So I'd be hard pressed to say for certain that that's what's going to happen every week with Devonta Smith. Um, I think that we have to wait and see how that plays out. They just brought in Dotson. There were a couple of times he lined up wrong, and he had to get moved. In fact, he lined up wrong initially on the Barkley touchdown and had to be
Oh,
moved to
Yeah.
the right spot.
Remember when Jordan Davis was coming out, you had said that he's strong but now not powerful. It does seem like towards the end of the game he still gets stood up continuously. And I my question is there a time where that is going to where that can change for those players?
He is very strong in terms of holding his ground, but power is movement strength, okay? It's strength with movement. That he's not. And in answer to your question, I have serious concerns because he's got a strong tendency to play too upright. And when you play too upright, you lose strength and power. I think that most coaches would say that that's hard to fix 100%. Maybe at times, certain snaps. Look, he had a great first snap of the game, and then after that, he was a non-factor. He stood up.
he wants to know if you agree with that or if you disagree with that.
Um, I think overall, I'd probably disagree, but it's not like, oh my God, he's wrong, and then they didn't get any pressure. I would say, based on watching preseason tape, not being at training camp, but watching the preseason games and then watching the game on Friday night, I think the big question they have is Nolan Smith, because Nolan Smith has not shown the ability to rush the quarterback, and he gets swallowed up.
The run fits were off by quite a bit, and it also seemed that misdirection run play seemed to really give the Eagles fits, and it kind of has since they've had a Fangio style defense. And I just wondered, is that something that Fangio's defenses have normally had issues with, or the Eagles not executing?
I thought that the lines for both teams, and I don't know whether the field had something to do with it
Mm.
because I know people were slipping and sliding to some extent. Um, I thought both lines on both sides did not play particularly well in the game. But I will answer it this way. In the Vic Fangio scheme, what they ask their defensive linemen to do is a little different. It's something called gap and a half, as opposed to just playing either one gap or two gap.
How did you think Mitchell played, by the way? When
Quinyon
you
Mitchell,
Yes.
I thought he played really well. I thought he played exceptionally well.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I could make the argument that he was their best defensive player, in my opinion. And again, I'm not breaking down well, they probably played 17, 18, 19 guys on D, so I'm not
Sure.
charting every single
Yeah.
guy, but obviously I made it a point to look at Mitchell, and he played, I think, all but 3 or 4 snaps, And I thought he played really, really well. I thought he played well when they went man, and I thought he had a great feel in zone.
You think it's best to bring Mitchell back inside and put Rodgers outside if that's who you feel are your best three guys?
That's hard to know, but I'll tell you just my opinion, based on years of doing this stuff. I think with a rookie, you don't want to move him around. He played outside corner in college. He played really well at outside corner on Friday night. I personally would keep him at outside corner.
Just trying to see what his true potential could be in this.
That's a great question because, again, this is probably one of those statements that people view as bold and controversial, but I've also had this conversation with coaches. Saquon's an interesting back because he's super explosive. There's any given play, he could take it 60 yards to the house. But despite his size, he's not a true sustaining back. He's not really a truly physical runner for his size. You actually saw that Friday night. There were times he got tackled pretty easily, but he's incredibly explosive.